Big K.R.I.T is a very interesting artist in the hip hop game because as much acclaim that he's had with all of his projects so far, or at least most of them, he's not really one that gets discussed in the grander scheme of like hip hop discussions. Like he's very consistent with his output, but no one really has gone on to say like, oh, he's one of the better rappers in the game. But the fan base he's accumulated is absolutely huge. He's very similar to Joey Badass in that sense, a very critically acclaimed hip hop artist, but really you wouldn't ever call him the GOAT or anything like that, or one of the better ones of this decade. Some underground artists that have far smaller followings, like ASAP Rock, Milo, artists like that. They probably get more acclaim and more praise, even though they have way smaller followings. And in my opinion, I think Big K.R.I.T has been pretty consistent. The past two albums he put out though were really below par. I think Cadillactica and the one I think there was like a mixtape last year or maybe 2015. That was quite a poor mixtape for him. And you know, I do like previous albums like Return of Forever and other projects as well from Big K.R.I.T, but he's not really one that sticks with me, to be honest. He always has a lot of great tracks on an album, but yeah, I never really feel like returning to them. And I've got to say, this is going to be very similar for me with Forever is a Mighty Long Time, to be honest. I think it might be one of his best albums so far, but it's so over bloated and at points has some very weak tracks on here that I just don't ever want to return to, and kind of ruin the flow for the album, because this is a double album and it is very long, which I don't have an issue with usually, but just in this particular case I do feel like there's just not enough here that compels me or makes me want to return to it. I mean, 1999 is obviously the worst song on this album, really bad vocals on this track. I've seen everyone call this the worst track on the album for very good reason. But then there are a lot of other tracks on here as well that I don't think many people have been quite as harsh on as I feel like I'm being, like Mixed Messages. I mean, there's a line on here where he's like, oh, you've got a lover but you still want to cheat. I mean, that's like Macklemore level of lyricism, you know, on his last album where he was like, I want to be a feminist but I still watch porn. It's not on par with that, but it's still really bad. I mean, come on, just awful lyrics. It's just like, oh. And another Macklemore comparison on this album is Drinking Sessions. The way that piano beat comes in and goes across the whole album is honestly like a dead ringer for something on The Heist by Macklemore, and the way K.R.I.T is rapping on this track with that stop-starty flow that he's got going on is very similar to Macklemore to me. I don't know, I feel like if Macklemore came out with this, people would have called it corny, but K.R.I.T has kind of gotten away with it. And obviously he's nowhere near as preachy as Macklemore, but still, I don't know, it's just too reminiscent of it for me. It just puts me off. Keep the Devil Off is another track that doesn't quite fit with me. I mean, I do kind of like the vocals, keep the devil off. It's very like soulful and very 70s, which I do like, but it doesn't really have any kind of thing that wants me to return to it. It's just kind of, ugh. Layup is a bit of a bland track too. I mean, I've got to say the diverse production on this album is very much in favour of Big K.R.I.T because he raps over all of these kind of styles pretty well for the most part. Like I've said, he's a good rapper, and the production is quality here. But just sometimes I don't think it all quite fits together. But the issue the issue with me is that there's so much good stuff on here that I just wanted it to carry on throughout the whole thing, but it just doesn't quite. Some of the very deep and personal lyrics work so well in his favour. I mean, Big K.R.I.T towards the end of this album goes really deep and just goes in, and I love it. I really love Big K.R.I.T doing this kind of stuff. And the first few tracks on the album as well are produced so well. Like, they're so catchy, they're so brilliantly made. There's a CeeLo Green feature on it at the beginning as well. Ride With Me had a pretty weak hook, but the rest of the track was really good. The classic interlude is really funny as well. I mean, that really just fits really well in today's society of the hip-hop world. And the features, like T.I. does a pretty good job, and you know, there's a lot of great tracks on here. I just think overall it kind of doesn't come together really well for me. It just ends up being good, but not quite as good as everyone said. I just don't feel like I'm attached to it as I wanted to be. I would give this like a C plus because again it is a bit over bloated. Not every track really is as good as you want it to be. I just don't know if I'm going to return to this as much as other Big K.R.I.T fans are, just like every other project from him, in my opinion. There's a lot of great music on here, honestly. There are some excellent tracks produced so well, so glamorous and glitzy, and just sound like luscious, but again there's just so much on this that I just wasn't into. So yeah, I think a C plus is pretty fair anyway. It's still a strong score. Do let me know what you think of this in the comments. I know a lot of people are loving this. Tell me why and what I've missed that people are loving so much. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews as well, and have a good day.